They just realized something they should have noticed a long time ago. You were never trying to become the one. You already were. They laughed when you struggled. They ignored you when you were building. They underestimated your silence because they mistook it for weakness. But now your results are standing in front of them like a slap they cannot ignore. And the craziest part? You didn't change into someone powerful. You simply stopped hiding who you were. People thought your silence meant you had nothing to say. They looked at you and assumed you were weak because you weren't arguing, defending yourself, or desperately trying to prove your worth. They saw you walking away and thought you had lost. They saw you staying quiet and believed you had nothing left. But they misunderstood the entire situation. Your silence was never emptiness. Your silence was preparation. While they were busy talking, you were watching. While they were judging, you were learning. While they were laughing at your setbacks, you were studying every mistake, every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment that forced you to question yourself. You weren't wasting your energy trying to convince people who had already decided to underestimate you. You were saving that energy for something bigger. And that's what they didn't understand. You don't always have to respond. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to say nothing and keep moving, because when you constantly explain yourself, you give people access to your energy. You allow their opinions to control your emotions. You start defending decisions they don't even have the right to question. You spend hours trying to prove something to people who aren't interested in understanding you anyway. But when you become comfortable with silence, something changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting to every insult. You stop announcing every plan. You stop telling everybody what you're about to accomplish. You simply work quietly, consistently, relentlessly. And then one day the results appear. That's when silence becomes powerful. Because people can argue with your words, they can criticize your intentions, they can question your plans, they can laugh at your dreams, but they cannot argue with results. They cannot debate the life you've built. They cannot erase the discipline that got you there. And suddenly, the person they ignored becomes the person they're watching. The person they underestimated becomes the person they're studying. The person they thought would never make it becomes the person they can't stop talking about. Don't rush that moment. Build toward it. There will be days when nobody understands what you're doing. There will be moments when you wonder whether anyone notices your effort. There will be times when you feel invisible. Good. Let yourself become invisible for a while. Use that space. Use the silence. Use the lack of attention as freedom, because when nobody is watching, you can build without pressure. You can fail without embarrassment. You can experiment without judgment. You can become stronger without having to perform for an audience. Remember this, not everyone deserves access to your plans. Some people only support you when they can understand your destination. The moment you choose a path they don't recognize, they question you. Let them question. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't need to announce your next move. Keep your head down. Keep your standards high. Keep your focus sharp. And let time expose what words never could, because one day they're going to look back and realize something painful. You weren't doing nothing, you were becoming someone they could no longer ignore. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of you building power. Some people don't respect potential. They respect evidence. They don't care what you could become. They care about what you have already proven. That's why they can overlook you when you're struggling, ignore you when you're building, and suddenly become interested when your results become impossible to deny. They saw the beginning, but they didn't believe in the ending. When you had nothing, they dismissed you. When you were still learning, they judged you. When you made mistakes, they used those mistakes as evidence that you would never succeed. They looked at one bad chapter and decided they already knew your entire story. But they didn't understand something. A chapter is not the whole book. Your current situation is not your final destination, and your worst moment does not have the authority to define your future. You don't need to convince these people anymore. You don't need to stand in front of them and explain why you're capable. You don't need to argue with every person who doubts you. Build. That's your answer. Let your discipline become evidence. Let your consistency become evidence. Let your progress become evidence. Let the person you become the proof. Because there is a certain moment when people can no longer ignore what you've built. They may have ignored your effort, but they cannot ignore the outcome. They may have laughed at the process, but they cannot laugh at the results forever. And that's when the energy changes. Suddenly, the person they overlooked becomes interesting. The person they never checked on becomes someone they want updates about. The person they thought would stay behind starts moving ahead, and they begin asking questions. How did you do it? When did you become so focused? Why? What changed? But here's the part they won't understand. Nothing changed overnight. You changed one decision at a time. You got tired of repeating the same mistakes. You got tired of needing approval. You got tired of explaining yourself. Or you got tired of making promises to yourself and breaking them. So you started keeping those promises. One day became another. One disciplined choice became another. One small improvement became another. And eventually, the person you were trying to become started becoming visible. That's what people call an overnight transformation. They see the result. They don't see the thousands of quiet moments behind it. They don't see the mornings when you didn't feel motivated, but still showed up. They don't see the nights when you wanted to quit, but continued anyway. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the internal battles. They don't see how many times you had to rebuild your confidence after disappointment. They only see the finished product. Let them. You don't need them to understand the process. Your responsibility isn't to make everyone believe in you. Your responsibility is to become undeniable to yourself, because once you know what you're capable of, outside opinions lose their power. You stop performing for people. You stop chasing recognition. You stop needing everyone to clap when you make progress. You simply continue. And eventually, the same people who ignored your potential will have no choice but to acknowledge your evidence. Not because you demanded their respect, because your results made disrespect impossible to maintain. That's the power of building quietly. You don't announce that you're becoming dangerous. You become dangerous. You don't tell people you're changing. You change. You don't ask them to believe. You give them something they can no longer deny. And when that moment arrives, don't turn around looking for their approval. Keep walking, because the goal was never to make them regret underestimating you. The goal was to become the person you always knew you could be. Every rejection taught you something. Every betrayal sharpened your judgment. Every failure forced you to become more disciplined. Every moment you felt forgotten taught you how to stand without applause. That's why you're different now. You didn't become stronger because life suddenly became easier. You became stronger because life gave you reasons to quit, and somehow you kept going. Think about everything that tried to break you, the disappointment you never talked about, the person who walked away when you needed them most, the opportunity you thought was finally yours only to watch it disappear, the nights when you questioned whether all your effort was worth anything. The moments when you looked around and realized nobody was coming to save you. Those moments hurt, but they also taught you something comfort never could. They taught you how to stand alone. When everything is going well, everybody can feel powerful. Anybody can be confident when they're winning. Anybody can talk about discipline when life is rewarding them. But real strength appears when nothing is going your way. That's where character is built. You discovered that rejection doesn't mean you're worthless. Sometimes it simply means you're being redirected. You discovered that betrayal doesn't mean you should become bitter. It means you need better boundaries. You discovered that failure doesn't mean you're finished. It means you found another way that doesn't work. And you discovered that being underestimated can become one of the greatest advantages you ever had. Because when people underestimate you, they stop watching closely. They stop expecting anything from you. They stop preparing for what you're capable of becoming. And while they are comfortable with their assumptions, you're changing. Quietly, patiently, intentionally. The person they remember is no longer the person standing in front of them. That's why your scars matter. Not because you should live in the past, but because they remind you of what you survived. Every scar carries information. Every difficult season left something behind. Maybe it gave you patience. Maybe it gave you discipline. Maybe it taught you to recognize fake loyalty. Maybe it taught you that your peace is more valuable than being accepted by everyone. Maybe it taught you that you can lose people and still find yourself. That is growth. And growth isn't always beautiful while it's happening. Sometimes growth looks like isolation. Sometimes it looks like starting over. Sometimes it looks like walking away from people you still care about. Sometimes it looks like sitting alone and rebuilding your confidence from nothing. Nobody celebrates those moments. Nobody sees the internal battles. But those are often the moments that create the strongest version of you. So stop wishing you had a different past. Stop asking why everything had to happen the way it did. You may never get every answer, but you can decide what those experiences mean. They can become your prison, or they can become your training ground. You can carry your pain forever, or you can turn it into wisdom. You can keep asking why they hurt you, or you can start asking what their actions taught you. That shift changes everything, because now your past isn't controlling you, it's educating you. You don't have to become cold. You don't have to hate anyone. You don't have to prove that you're stronger than the people who hurt you. Just become stronger than the version of yourself that almost gave up. That's the victory. Let them remember the person they thought they broke. You remember the person who survived. And when you finally stand at a level they never expected you to reach, don't forget what built you. The pressure didn't destroy you. It revealed you. The rejection didn't end you, it redirected you. The betrayal didn't finish you, it sharpened you. The failure didn't define you, it trained you. And now you understand something they never will. Some people thought they were watching your downfall when they were actually witnessing your transformation. Stop trying to prove yourself to people who have already decided what they think about you. This is where your next level begins. Because the moment you stop needing everyone to understand you, you become incredibly difficult to control. Think about how much energy you've wasted explaining yourself, explaining why you made a certain decision, explaining why you walked away, explaining why you changed, explaining why you no longer tolerate the same disrespect, explaining why you don't want to live the way everyone else lives. You kept trying to make people understand your intentions when the truth is simple. People who genuinely care about you don't need a courtroom presentation every time you make a choice. And people who are committed to misunderstanding you won't suddenly understand because you gave them another explanation. So stop. Let them misunderstand. Let them create their own stories. Let them talk. You have somewhere to go. Your life is too valuable to spend every day correcting people who are determined to see you through an old version of yourself. You don't need to prove that you're intelligent. Build something intelligent. You don't need to prove that you're disciplined. Stay consistent. You don't need to prove that you're strong. Handle what comes next. You don't need to prove that you're different. Live differently. That's the difference between seeking validation and becoming undeniable. Validation asks, do they believe in me? Power asks, do I believe in myself enough to continue? And once you make that shift, everything changes. You stop announcing every plan. You stop telling everyone what you're going to do. You stop posting every move before you've completed it. You stop needing applause for every small victory. You become comfortable working in silence. That's where real transformation happens. Because when nobody is watching, you can focus on becoming better instead of looking better. You can make mistakes without worrying about embarrassment. You can fail without having to explain yourself. You can start again without announcing that you fell. And eventually, your consistency starts speaking for you. People notice, not because you demanded attention, because your behavior changed, your standards changed, your results changed, your presence changed, and suddenly the person who used to explain everything doesn't explain anything anymore. That's when people become curious. They wonder what happened. They wonder why you're so calm. They wonder why you don't react anymore. They wonder why their insults don't affect you the way they used to. The answer is simple. You've stopped giving strangers control over your emotions. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally understand what deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every person deserves access to your mind. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence followed by progress. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your character speak. Let your results speak. And when somebody tries to pull you back into the old version of yourself, don't argue with them. Keep moving. Because every minute you spend proving yourself is a minute you could have spent improving yourself. You weren't put here to convince everybody that you're worthy. You were put here to become everything you know you can be. So walk away from the need to be understood. Walk away from the need to be approved. Walk away from the need to be applauded, and build. Build so quietly that your progress surprises everyone. Build so consistently that your transformation looks impossible. Build so seriously that distractions no longer recognize you. Because the strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the person who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need anybody else to confirm it. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. Become the proof. You were that one from day one. They just didn't recognize it. That's the truth you need to carry with you when the world suddenly starts treating you differently. Don't let their new attention convince you that you only became valuable when they noticed you. Your value existed before the applause. Your potential existed before the results. Your strength existed before anybody called you strong. You were becoming someone long before they started watching. They simply weren't paying attention. For a long time, you probably wondered why people couldn't see what you were capable of. You wondered why they could recognize someone else's talent but overlook yours. You wondered why you had to struggle so much while other people seemed to receive opportunities effortlessly. But maybe the silence was necessary. Maybe you needed those years when nobody was watching. Maybe you needed the seasons when your name wasn't being mentioned. Maybe you needed to build without an audience. Because if everyone had believed in you from the beginning, you might have depended on their belief. Instead, you were forced to develop your own. And that changes a person. When nobody claps for you, you learn to clap for yourself. When nobody encourages you, you learn how to keep moving anyway. When nobody sees your effort, you learn that effort still matters. And when nobody believes in your vision, you learn the most important lesson of all. You don't need unanimous approval to create an extraordinary life. You only need enough courage to continue. So don't become addicted to attention now. Don't start performing for the same people who ignored you before. Don't change your personality because suddenly they're interested. Don't lower your standards just because someone who once dismissed you is now trying to get close. Remember who you became when nobody was watching. That version of you deserves respect. You fought for that version. You built that version. You earned that confidence. Protect it. People may suddenly notice your energy. They may notice your discipline. They may notice your appearance. They may notice your confidence. They may notice how calm you have become. They may wonder what happened, but you know what happened. You stopped abandoning yourself. You stopped negotiating with your own potential. You stopped waiting for permission. You stopped allowing temporary failures to become permanent identities. And once you made that decision, your entire direction began to change. Now you have something they can't take away. Self-respect. That's more powerful than applause. Because applause comes and goes, attention comes and goes, people come and go. But when you know who you are, you don't collapse every time somebody walks away. You don't become smaller because someone refuses to recognize you. You don't question your worth because someone doesn't appreciate you. You keep moving. That's what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You're no longer controlled by recognition. You're controlled by purpose. So let them watch, let them talk, let them finally understand. Let them realize that the person they underestimated was never ordinary. But don't waste your future trying to make them regret their past. Your mission is bigger than revenge. Your victory is becoming so complete that revenge becomes unnecessary. You don't need to destroy anyone. You don't need to embarrass anyone. You don't need to announce that they were wrong. Just become the person they never imagined you could be. And when they finally look at you and realize that you've been that one from day one, smile quietly, because you already knew. You knew before the results. You knew before the attention. You knew before the recognition. You knew when nobody else did. And that's the part they can never take from you. They didn't create your greatness. They simply arrived late enough to witness it. So keep walking, keep building, keep becoming. Let the world catch up at its own speed, because you were never waiting for them to choose you. You were becoming impossible to overlook.